Hello YouTube!
Hello!
Welcome to another comparison video. Today it's an honor for me that I can make this video together with Roman Kase. Roman runs the company Kase Knives, and please can you introduce yourself for those who don't know your work.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Felix. It's an honor. I'm a custom knife maker from Switzerland, and I make knives from specialty high hardness powder metallurgical steels, 70 Rockwell C hardness, cryogenic cycling, all that stuff, and I am pretty much a nerd when it comes to metallurgy and high-end knife making. Felix told me he's a little bit nervous, right, about today's video because it's gonna be something different.
Yes.
Why is that?
That's because we try to find an answer on the question how well performs a standard Victorinox Sisal knife blade in comparison to modern PM steels like M390 or
MagnaCut, right?
Yeah. And I think this is a big question.
A very loaded, big question. It's a big can of worms, as they say.
Okay, and yes, we try to give you an answer on this question. These are the knives we want to test. This is the wool piece from Fox Knives with the M390 steel. This is the Victorinox Hiker with the 4110 steel. And this is the Leatherman Arc with the MagnaCut. So what I did as preparation for this video is I brought all the cutting edges on the same angle. I chose 17.5 degrees on both sides for each knife. And I did my best to bring all the knives on the same sharpness level. So I really hope that this will be a fair comparison. As you can see, I changed the cutting edge angle from the Fox knife wool piece from 2 times 20 degrees to 2 times 17.5 degrees. The Victorinox Hiker I changed from 2 times 20 degrees to 2 times 17.5 degrees. And the Leatherman Arc was already on 2 times 17.5 degrees. So the first thing we make is we hold all these knives under the microscope and make a picture from the cutting edge. Right. On this picture you can see that all of these knives has visually about the same sharpness level. And the second thing we made is
initial cutting performance using the Newton geometry tester. It's both a sharpness and a geometry tester.
After that we go out and do the wear resistance test.
Right, and what will you do exactly?
Okay, so we will first cut 20 times through a Sisal rope. After that we make 40 cuts through cardboard, and after that we make 40 cuts into hazelwood. Right,
and the reason we do this, or Felix will do this, is these are all different kinds of force and wear that get to the knife blade, or that get applied to the edge, I should say, and that will give us, I think, a realistic spectrum of real-world use, and then we will just observe. We will go there with an open mind and say, okay, let's look at what's happening. Open mind, and I think this is very interesting because most of the time, including myself, what we do as a community is we do rope cutting tests or cardboard cutting tests only. This will be a pretty wide selection, I think.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, after the wear test, we will look at the blade again on the Newton sharpness and edge performance tester, and then we will see what has changed, and we will discuss it a little bit and hopefully gain some insight for all of us.
Super, so let's start the games.
Let's start the games. Right. Now I measure the Leatherman in MagnaCut before the test. Okay. Victorinox before the wear resistance test. Okay. Now I measure the Fox knife in M390 before the wear resistance test. Alright, we have tested all these 3 blades, and now we can look at the results on the graph. Now first let me quickly explain what we see. So we have the force in Newton here, and we have the distance traveled of the foil along the blade. Can you see that right here? That's this line. And what's very important to notice and to keep in mind is, first of all these blades have a very different behind the edge thickness. Okay, you can, for example, see the MagnaCut Leatherman tool has a very wide bevel versus the Fox, and even though they are all at 17.5 degrees, so the thickness behind the edge is vastly different, and you can see this reflected here on the graph. Just for a quick reference, the orange line is the Victorinox, the yellow line is the Fox, and the green line is the Leatherman.
For you, it's important to know that as higher this curve, as taller the knife, because he needs more force to cut through this Teflon band. So the Victorinox knife is actually the best in this initial measurement.
Again, all of these were sharpened to the same degree. I trust Felix's expertise, but they are more or less the same. Initial sharpness is about the same. If one of these was much duller, we would see a much different peak. We did repeat this test a few times. We are always around this value here. Initially, they all pretty much look the same. So what we will do now is, or what Felix will do is, he will go cut with these knives. And for me personally, it's interesting to see how much sharpness loss we will have on something like MagnaCut versus a Victorinox knife. Will it be extreme or will it be not extreme? We will see, right? Yeah. Let's go.
First of all, I will do 40 cuts in hazelwood with the Victorinox. Now the Fox. Okay, now the Leatherman arc.
Now we do 40 cuts in cardboard with the Victorinox. Now we do 40 cuts with the Fox. And now 40 cuts with the Leatherman tool in MagnaCut. This is just from the marking so that we could be sure where we clamp it in the machine, but that doesn't bother us. Alright, let's check what MagnaCut did. And now we do the M390. And now we are testing the Victorinox, and wow, okay. Now this you can ignore because from this point onwards the motor retracts and the sensor basically crashes out. But the first 3 seconds are what is interesting. So blue is M390 from Fox. Yellow is MagnaCut from Leatherman, and green, very interesting, is the Victorinox stainless steel. And I was expecting this to be way up here because the higher the duller. I was expecting this to dull much faster in cardboard already. Not necessarily in the wood, but definitely in the cardboard. So now the rope cutting test will begin. And now my prediction is that both MagnaCut and M390 will stay in the lower value, and the Victorinox will rise and get much duller, but let's find out. Only one way to find out, right?
We will see.
We will see. Now we are going to do 20 cuts in Sisal rope, starting with the Victorinox, and I will take care to only cut at the area where we will later be measuring, because this is a smaller test medium, and I know I have a little marker here and here, so I know where we cut. So that's very important. So I'm gonna start. And now we are going to do the same with the Fox knife and M390, again using this section here again.
It's a nightmare to hold it.
It's a nightmare to hold it, and even though the Newton tester didn't show us this, it is much thicker behind the edge than the Victorinox. So yeah, you can see my fingers red, so much more comfortable handle, definitely. And now, last but not least, the Leatherman in MagnaCut, and this is the area we are going to cut. I have some Tipex on there because this is black and I need to see where I clamp this plate. So let's go! And
Okay, after the Sisal test, we start to measuring the Fox. So now we measure the Leatherman arc after the Sisal test.
Alright, we have tested the M390 from Fox and the MagnaCut from Leatherman after all the tests have been completed, and they did again pretty much similarly. But now maybe you can film to the screen. Can they see the screen?
Yeah.
So what you see, the top is MagnaCut, this is M390. Again, higher means dollar. And now we have some results and we are very surprised. This is the sharpness before all these tests, and it was around 2.8 to 3 Newton. After the cardboard, wood and rope, we are still, for all steels, at 2.8 to 3 Newton. And I honestly had expected that the Victorinox would sharply fall, or actually rise, because the higher you go, the duller it gets. But no, it kept up excellently so far with the PM grade steels. So that's awesome. But now let's up the game and go into... We need a harder test. Let's go into Manila rope. And Manila rope is very, very abrasive. And my prediction again will be that the high vanadium carbide steels will win. But so far what we can say in everyday materials, cardboard, Middle European medium hard woods like hazelwood, honestly Victorinox is absolutely still in the top. So let's see what happens with an exotic material.
Super.
Now we do the test with Manila rope, 5 cuts each, and then let's check how it changes. So first the Victorinox, and I have tape around the rope. Alright, so let's do the test after the Manila rope, starting with the Fox knives in M390. So let's see what happens with the Victorinox steel versus MagnaCut and M390. Very curious after the Manila rope. Moment of truth. It has less wear. Now, I don't want to jump to conclusions just now. I would say you have to keep cutting, but I have expected Victorinox to be like up there, honestly, like seeing the jump from MagnaCut. But now let's see if this is not just a fluke. If we keep cutting and testing and this trend will continue, then maybe this is not a fluke. Let's keep testing.
Yep. So now we make 10 more cuts in the Manila rope with every knife. Okay. Because I didn't felt the big difference, I decided to make 10 more cuts.
Alright, so Felix has done 20 more cuts in Manila rope. So total that brings us to 40 cuts in cardboard, 40 cuts in hazelwood, 20 cuts in Sisal rope and 25 cuts in Manila rope. We did not have decrease or significant change after 5 cuts in Manila rope. So let's see what happened after 20 more. And we are starting with the M390. Can they see the screen? Again, we only look at the initial peak. That one still didn't really change. Very interesting. So, but it is a very resistant steel, M390. Let's not forget that. Let's go to the MagnaCut one. The MagnaCut was also around 3 Newton, 2.8, 3 Newton, something like that. And it behaves exactly the same. So they were exactly the same. But again, both PM grade. Now let's see what the Victorinox says. So now we put in at the same angle the Victorinox. By now I expect a fall off. That Victorinox was even capable of being on the same level for so long was crazy. Let's see what it will do now. Okay, so are they seeing this on the screen?
Yeah.
Victorinox did dull more, but still much less than I would have thought, and it took much longer. And you can, if you look here, the sharpness value, these 2 PM grades, these M390 MagnaCut, they did the same. You couldn't tell the difference here. Victorinox now starts to dull, but I think this is an excellent result for a knife with an ingot steel, and I think they have done a really good job with heat treating, Victorinox that is, and maybe, just as a guess, I have been saying for years how important cool grinding and sharpening is when you use powered equipment. I do know that Victorinox takes great care when it comes to preserving the heat treat of their blades during grinding and sharpening, so I think this is also something that we need to take into account here. But this is a much better result. What do you think, Felix? What do you think?
To be honest, I'm quite surprised that the Victorinox blade steel performs that well in comparison to modern powder steels. But hey, great to know. So, now our conclusion.
Right.
And I think after 20 cuts in cardboard, 40 cuts in cardboard, 40 cuts in hazelwood, 20 cuts in Sisal rope,
and 25 cuts in Manila rope.
And 25 cuts in Manila rope. Victorinox lost about 15%.
17.86% less cutting performance, according to the data we crunched. So yeah, 15% I think is fair to say.
Yeah, in comparison with a modern PM steel, and this is much less than I expected.
It's much better, yeah. Honestly, I was skeptical. I was thinking, okay, Victorinox will fall behind by 50%, something like that, if not more.
Yeah.
And
this was not the case.
This was not the case. Of course, if we kept testing in Manila rope, which is very abrasive, the gap would widen. But we have done a lot of work with this blade. We have filmed it, you could see it. So for the average user, I think it's an excellent choice. But I will always love PM grade steels, you know me.
So, and if you take into account other criteria like price, like ergonomic, I would still choose this one.
Honestly. Obviously, I will always advertise my own knives, but I always carry a Swiss Army knife too, because these things are ergonomic and available. My issues with the other ones were ergonomics and thickness behind the edge. I always say geometry cuts, and what Victorinox does right, I have to really hand it to them. It's ground much thinner than the other 2 options we had, and we felt that. We had to struggle, especially in the Manila rope, with the others. And I would say the Victorinox is an awesome contender. It's very strong.
Yeah, super. And this was a nightmare to work with.
Very small. Of course, I
like it visually, but it was a nightmare to hold it and to work with. So.
Yes, and I think if you want to buy a knife that serves you well, steel is very important, but ergonomics and the entire package is what it comes down to. And this is also why I became a custom knife maker, because I wasn't able to find on the market what I wanted, so I make it. I like it. I mean, obviously I'm biased, I'm Swiss, but I love it actually.
Super. So we would say with this sentence we close our
We
video.
close the video. Thanks for having me. Any final statements from your side?
My final statement, buy Victorinox and you will be happy.
Sure.
Okay, so we hope this was a fair test, believe it or not, but
This is what we found.
Yeah, this is what we found.
These are the numbers.
okay, then please visit
Would be awesome.
Roman's YouTube channel and his Instagram. Thanks a lot for watching and see you in 2 or 3 weeks.
Bye.
Ciao!